In every corner of modern life, we feel the weight pressing down. The world moves faster each year, demanding more, rewarding less. Stress creeps into our mornings before we even rise. Money feels scarce no matter how hard we work. Relationships fray under invisible pressure, and anxiety lingers like a shadow we cannot shake. We live in a culture of constant striving, a culture that tells us peace comes only when we win more, own more, prove more. And yet, even those who seem to have everything confess to sleepless nights, restless hearts, and a quiet ache that no success can silence. Deep inside, many begin to whisper the same question: is this all there is? This question is not new. For centuries, human beings have wrestled with the storms of desire, fear, and endless dissatisfaction. Ancient wisdom looked unflinchingly at this pain and discovered something radical. The suffering is real, but it is not permanent. There is a way through. Instead of running faster in the maze, instead of adding more to the already overflowing bowl, the teachings invite us to pause, to breathe, to see the patterns we are trapped in, and to discover a gentler way of living. This is not about escaping life or denying its challenges. It is about meeting life with a new heart, a new perspective, one that can transform even the most ordinary moment into a place of refuge. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a stormy sky, filled with thunder, lightning, and restless winds. The noise feels overwhelming, the chaos endless. But far above the clouds lies an expanse of still blue sky, untouched, vast, serene. That sky is always there, even when storms rage below. The path we are about to walk together is not about erasing the storms, but about learning how to rise into that clear sky, to rest in awareness that is steady, calm, and free. From this place, problems lose their sharp edges, and life begins to soften. The burdens of modern living do not vanish, but they no longer own us. In the next chapters, we will journey through the deepest struggles of modern life: stress, money, relationships, anxiety, and more, and we will see how the timeless wisdom of the Buddha offers a way to ease the heart. These teachings are not abstract theories. They are tools you can hold in your hands, practices you can try in your own breath, your own day. You will hear stories that mirror your own challenges, metaphors that shine light on hidden patterns, and simple steps that open doors to freedom. This journey is not for monks in faraway temples only. It is for you right where you are, in the middle of deadlines, bills, family arguments, and the quiet ache of loneliness. As you listen, you may begin to notice something subtle: a shift, a space, a gentle current beneath the storm. You may realize that freedom is not a distant prize waiting at the end of your achievements. It is here, in this moment, waiting quietly beneath your very breath. The teachings we will explore do not demand belief. They ask only for your curiosity, your willingness to listen, and your courage to open the door. The journey begins now, not in some distant future. And as we step into the first great challenge of stress, let us carry this truth like a lantern. The way out of suffering is already within us, waiting to be remembered. Stress has become the uninvited guest that sits at every table, the weight we carry into every room. In the modern world, it wears 1,000 disguises. For some, it is the clock ticking louder than the heartbeat, reminding us of deadlines that never end. For others, it is the constant buzzing of phones, emails, and notifications, each one demanding attention as if the entire world will collapse if we do not respond. Even in moments that should bring peace: a quiet dinner, a walk in the park, a drive home at dusk, stress lingers in the mind, whispering about what still needs to be done, what could go wrong, what might already be slipping out of our control. This constant tension does not only live in the mind, it lives in the body. The shoulders grow tight, the jaw clenches, the chest feels heavy. Sleep becomes a battlefield where the body lies down, but the mind refuses to rest. We wake with the same exhaustion we carried to bed. Day after day, stress builds like invisible chains, shaping our mood, our decisions, even the way we speak to those we love. Instead of living, we are surviving, always in a state of fight or flight, even when there is no real enemy. And slowly, we begin to lose touch with joy. Life turns into a list of tasks, a competition with time, a desperate attempt to keep up. Why does stress hold such power over us? Part of the answer lies in the way we see ourselves. We believe that to be valuable, we must always achieve, always perform, always carry more than we can bear. Our culture glorifies the busy schedule, the overloaded calendar, the person who never stops. We mistake exhaustion for success, and we mistake constant effort for love. Beneath it all lies a quiet fear. If we stop, if we rest, maybe we are not enough. Maybe the world will forget us. Maybe everything will fall apart. Stress becomes not just a response to circumstances, but a habit of being, an identity we wear, even when it hurts us not. But what if stress is not the proof of our strength, but the signal of our forgetting? What if stress is the alarm bell that tells us we have wandered too far from our own center? This is where the ancient wisdom of the Buddha enters, not as a lecture, but as a lantern. In the teachings, stress is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that we are clinging too tightly, pushing against the natural flow of life. Stress arises when we demand the world move according to our timeline, when we try to bend reality to our will. It is like standing in the middle of a river, fighting the current with all our strength, believing we can stop the water. The more we resist, the more exhausted we become. But the river does not care. It keeps flowing. And the truth is, peace begins not when the river stops, but when we learn to float. This shift sounds simple, but it is profound. To float is not to give up. It is to realize that we do not need to control every wave. Stress convinces us that the world is hostile, that we must armor ourselves to survive. The teachings remind us that the world is both storm and calm, and that the storm passes, always. Instead of gripping tighter, we can loosen. Instead of rushing forward, we can pause. In that pause, something incredible happens. The body softens, the breath deepens, the heart begins to feel alive again. For the first time in a long time, we remember what it feels like to be human, not just a machine built to endure. Let us consider an image. Imagine a glass of water held out at arm's length. For the first minute, it feels light. After 5 minutes, the arm grows heavy. After an hour, it feels unbearable. The weight of the glass never changed. What changed was the time we carried it without rest. Stress works the same way. The weight of life's problems may not be crushing, but when we carry them without pause, without relief, they become unbearable. The Buddha's teaching is not to deny the glass or to smash it. It is to put it down for a while. Rest the arm, breathe, and when we are ready, we can lift it again with strength renewed. The doorway to this practice begins with the breath. Right now, as you hear these words, notice your breath. Do not change it, do not judge it. Just notice. Feel the air enter, feel it leave. It is simple, yet it is a revolution. For in that single breath lies a reminder. Life is not waiting for you at the end of your to-do list. Life is here, in this inhale, in this exhale. The storm of stress may rage around you, but in the center of the storm is stillness, a place untouched, waiting to welcome you home. This is the art of mindfulness, of paying attention, not to the chaos outside, but to the quiet within. And each time you return to the breath, you step out of the prison of stress, even if only for a moment. Over time, those moments grow into freedom. The power of this practice has been confirmed not only in temples, but also in modern science. Doctors, therapists, and researchers now echo what monks have known for centuries. that mindfulness lowers blood pressure, softens anxiety, restores balance to the nervous system. But beyond science lies something even more vital: the lived experience of peace. When you learn to breathe with awareness, you are no longer trapped by tomorrow's fears or yesterday's regrets. You return to the only place you truly live, this moment. And here, in this small and sacred now, stress begins to dissolve, not because life became easier, but because you remembered how to meet it with open hands. Yet let us be honest, stress does not disappear overnight. Old habits cling. The mind will return again and again to worry, to tension, to the belief that if we just push harder, we will finally arrive at peace. But peace is not at the end of effort. It is at the beginning of letting go. This is the paradox, the quiet truth hidden in plain sight. The more we chase freedom through force, the further it runs. But when we stop, when we breathe, when we allow ourselves to simply be, freedom comes closer. It was here all along, waiting in the space between thoughts, waiting in the gentle rhythm of the breath dot. So the invitation is not to conquer stress, but to befriend it, to see it not as an enemy, but as a messenger. Stress tells us where we are holding too tightly, where we are forgetting to trust. When we listen to that message, stress becomes a teacher. It points us back to balance, to compassion, to the wisdom of enough. And in this way, stress itself becomes the doorway to peace. Even when we begin to notice the breath, even when we pause, the mind often rushes back to its old patterns. It says, "This is not enough. You must do more. You must fix everything now." That voice is persistent, and it can feel louder than the gentle current of calm. But the teachings remind us that the mind is like a wild horse. If we pull the reins too hard, it resists. If we let it run without direction, it throws us into chaos. The skill lies in guiding it with patience, step by step, breath by breath, until it learns to rest. Stress is not defeated in a single moment. It is softened over time, like a stone shaped by the river. Slowly, gently, with consistency, the sharp edges of fear and pressure begin to smooth. Think of the way a forest heals itself. After a fire, the land looks destroyed. Yet, in time, small green shoots appear. Slowly, life returns. Stress may burn us out, leaving us feeling empty and fragile. But with care, with attention, with compassion, we too can heal. Healing does not mean we never feel stress again. It means stress no longer defines us. It rises and falls like weather, but it does not decide the shape of our lives. This is the gift of practice, the ability to return again and again to the calm beneath the storm, to the steady rhythm of breath, to the truth that we are more than our worries. One of the great illusions of stress is that it isolates us. It convinces us that we are alone, that no one understands the weight we carry. Yet when we look deeper, we see that stress is universal. Every person you pass on the street carries hidden burdens. The smile you see at work may hide a restless night. The neighbor who waves from their car may be drowning in unspoken worries. Realizing this is not meant to make us hopeless, but to awaken compassion. When we see that others too carry stress, our hearts begin to soften. Instead of competing in suffering, we can walk together, offering kindness, a listening ear, a gentle word. In this way, stress becomes not a wall that separates us, but a bridge that connects us. Buddhist teachings often describe stress and suffering as a fire fueled by craving and aversion. We want life to be different than it is. We cling to what we like, we push away what we dislike, and in this endless tug of war, we exhaust ourselves. The practice of letting go is like putting down the rope in this game. The other side may still pull, the world may still move, but we no longer waste our strength fighting what cannot be controlled. This letting go is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the strength to see clearly that control is an illusion, that peace does not come from bending the world, but from softening the grip of the mind. Letting go does not mean we stop working, stop caring, or stop dreaming. It means we work without being consumed, we care without being crushed, we dream without being trapped. Imagine holding sand in your hand. Grip it tightly, and it slips away. Hold it gently, and it stays. Life is like that sand. Stress comes from gripping too hard. Freedom comes from holding with open hands. And when we practice this open-handed living, stress loses its power to choke us. We begin to live with a balance that is steady, not frantic, calm, not frozen. Another practice the teachings encourage is gratitude. Stress often blinds us to what is already good, already present, already enough. The mind, addicted to chasing what is missing, forgets to see the gifts at hand. But when we pause to notice a warm meal, a kind word, the simple miracle of breath, we create space in the heart. Gratitude does not erase stress, but it shifts perspective. Suddenly, the mountain of worry feels less overwhelming because we see that not everything is broken, not everything is heavy. Gratitude is like a lamp in a dark room. It does not remove the night, but it brings light enough to walk. Of course, there are times when stress feels overwhelming, when nothing seems to help. In those moments, the teaching is to be gentle. Do not add judgment to the burden. Do not say, I should be stronger, I should be calm. Simply acknowledge, this is stress, this is heavy, and this too will pass. Just as waves crash and then recede, stress rises and falls. No storm lasts forever. To remember this is to place a seed of hope in the heart. And with hope, even in darkness, we find the strength to take the next step. One story tells of a monk who once carried a heavy bag of stones. When asked why he carried them, he answered, "Because I have grown used to it." Many of us do the same with stress. We carry it because it feels normal, because we believe there is no other way. But the truth is, we can put it down. We can rest. We can learn a different rhythm, one where stress does not own every hour of our lives. This is the liberation the teachings point toward. Not a life without challenges, but a life where challenges no longer crush us. A life where we move through difficulty with grace, where we walk lightly even when the road is steep out. And so, as we close this chapter on stress, let us carry forward this truth. Stress is not our destiny. It is a messenger, a reminder that we are clinging too tightly, forgetting to trust, forgetting to breathe. When we meet it with awareness, with compassion, with the courage to let go, stress itself becomes the path to freedom. And this path does not end here. For stress is often tied to deeper concerns, concerns about money, security, and the fear of not having enough. These worries weigh heavily on the modern heart, creating cycles of anxiety that seem endless. But just as the teachings illuminate stress, they also shine light on our relationship with money. And so we turn now, with open eyes and open hearts, to the next challenge that shapes our lives, the search for enough. Money is one of the great mirrors of our time. It reflects our hopes, our fears, our sense of worth. For many, it is the hidden thread that ties together so much of life's stress. We wake each morning thinking of bills to pay, debts to manage, or savings to protect. We measure our success by the size of our paycheck, the number in our bank account, the possessions we can show to others. And even when the numbers rise, the anxiety does not vanish. Instead, it grows into new questions. Will it last? What if I lose it? What if others have more? The pursuit of money often begins as a search for security, but it quickly transforms into a restless craving, one that never feels satisfied. No matter how much we gather, there is always the whisper, not enough. This craving is deeply human. From the earliest days, survival depended on resources. Food, shelter, and tools meant life or death. Today, our basic needs are often met, yet the ancient hunger remains. It disguises itself in modern forms. The endless chase for upgrades, the desire for bigger homes, the fear of falling behind. Advertisements feed this hunger daily, telling us we will finally be happy if we buy one more thing, one more experience, one more symbol of success. And so the cycle spins. We work harder to earn more. We spend more to feel complete, and the emptiness only deepens. Money becomes not a tool for living, but a master we serve, a voice that commands our time, our energy, even our dreams. But here lies a paradox. Money itself is neutral. It is not evil, nor is it salvation. A dollar bill is just paper, metal, or numbers glowing on a screen. The suffering comes not from money itself, but from the way we cling to it, fear it, and define ourselves by it. In Buddhist teachings, this clinging is known as attachment. The more we believe money will give us lasting peace, the tighter we hold. Yet the tighter we hold, the more anxious we become. It is like holding water in your hands. Squeeze too hard, and it slips away. Hold gently, and it remains. The wisdom is not to reject money, but to change our relationship with it. To see it not as the source of our worth, but as a tool useful, but not ultimate. Imagine a bowl filled with water. If you pour endlessly into it, the water overflows, making a mess. If you fill it just enough, it becomes useful, steady, complete. This is the teaching of enough. The Buddha called it santuthi, or contentment. It is the understanding that peace does not come from having everything, but from recognizing when what we have is enough. In a culture that glorifies more, contentment feels radical. Yet it is the seed of true freedom. When we learn to say, "This is enough for today," the endless craving loosens. The heart rests. We no longer measure our value by numbers, but by the depth of our presence, the kindness of our actions, the peace in our breath. Not to understand this, let us look at a story. There was once a wealthy merchant who came to the Buddha, troubled by fear. Despite his riches, he worried every night about thieves, about loss, about enemies. He asked the Buddha, "How can I find peace?" The Buddha replied, "Wealth brings fear, but contentment brings safety. The one who desires little sleeps peacefully." The merchant was shocked. He thought safety came from more locks, more guards, more gold. Yet the Buddha pointed to a deeper truth. The greatest thief is the mind that never feels secure. True wealth is not found in possession, but in peace of heart. This does not mean we abandon responsibility. We still earn, save, and care for those we love. But the difference is in how we carry it. Instead of serving money as a master, we allow it to serve us as a tool. We use it to nourish, to create, to share. And we remember that its value is temporary. No amount of wealth can prevent sickness, aging, or death. No amount of wealth can buy true love or inner peace. These truths humble us, reminding us that while money matters, it does not matter most. When we forget this, we suffer. When we remember, we are free. Consider how much of our conflict arises from money. Families break apart over inheritance. Friendships dissolve over loans unpaid. Marriages strain under financial tension. Nations wage wars for resources. All of this points to the same root, the belief that money is ultimate, that it guarantees safety, identity, or permanence. Yet nothing in life is permanent. Money flows in and out like the tide. Sometimes we have more, sometimes less. To cling to it as though it were eternal is to build our house on shifting sand. Sooner or later, the waves come. The teaching is clear. Build your house not on sand, but on the ground of wisdom and compassion, where no storm can wash it away. In your own life, think of the times when you have been most at peace. Was it when you bought something new? Or was it when you shared laughter with a friend? Was it when your bank account grew? Or was it when you sat quietly, breathing deeply, with nothing to prove? Money may have been present in those moments, but it was not the source of peace. Peace came from presence, from connection, from love. These are the treasures that no thief can steal, no market can crash, no time can erode. They are the true wealth of life. As we reflect on money, let us remember, the goal is not to reject it, nor to worship it. The goal is to see it clearly, to recognize its power without being enslaved, to use it wisely without clinging, to find contentment enough. In this way, money becomes not a source of endless stress, but a practice ground for freedom. And as we loosen our grip on money, we prepare the heart for the next challenge that so often intertwines with wealth, our relationships. For what is money without the people we seek to share it with? And what peace can wealth bring if our connections are broken? Even when we begin to see money as a tool, the mind often returns to its old habits. It whispers, "You must have more. What you have will never last." This whisper is powerful because it speaks to one of our deepest fears, the fear of insecurity. We long for a guarantee that life will always be safe, that tomorrow will always be stable. Yet life offers no such guarantee. Jobs change, markets shift, accidents happen. Clinging to money as our only source of security is like trying to anchor a ship to a drifting log. The illusion of stability cannot protect us when the storm comes. But there is another kind of security, one that no storm can take away. The security of wisdom, compassion, and trust in the flow of life. Think of the open hand. When the hand is clenched tight, it can hold only a little, and it grows tired quickly. When the hand is open, it can receive, release, and rest. Living with an open hand toward money means we do not fear its coming or going. We earn with integrity, we spend with mindfulness, we share with generosity, and we rest in the knowledge that no number defines our worth. This openness transforms money from a prison into a path. Instead of being trapped by it, we learn through it. Instead of measuring life by accumulation, we measure it by presence and kindness. This is the deeper freedom the Buddha pointed toward, a freedom not from responsibility, but from the chains of attachment. Generosity plays a vital role in this transformation. In many teachings, the first perfection on the path is generosity. Why? Because it loosens the grip of fear. When we give, even something small, even a kind gesture, we remind ourselves that we are not defined by what we cling to. We are defined by how we live, how we love, how we serve. Think of a candle lighting another candle. The first flame is not diminished. Instead, the light doubles. So it is with generosity. When we share, our sense of abundance grows, and money loses its power to dominate our hearts. The act of giving teaches us that true wealth is not what we keep, but what we release. But generosity is not only about money. It is about spirit. It is about giving time, attention, patience, forgiveness. In fact, these gifts are often more precious than gold. Money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy presence. Money can purchase convenience, but it cannot purchase true love. When we give ourselves fully to the moment, to those around us, we create treasures that cannot be counted. In this way, generosity becomes a practice of freedom, not only freedom from greed, but freedom from fear itself. Another important truth is impermanence. No matter how much wealth we build, it will one day slip through our fingers. We may lose it, we may spend it, or we may leave it behind when we die. Remembering this does not mean despair. It means clarity. It means living with awareness that money cannot follow us beyond this life. What can follow us, according to the teachings, are the seeds we plant in our hearts: kindness, wisdom, compassion. These are the real investments, the treasures that endure beyond time. When we remember impermanence, we stop clinging so desperately. We begin to use money wisely, not wastefully. We begin to value people more than possessions. And slowly, the heart learns to rest. There is also the subtle suffering of comparison. We look at others and measure ourselves against them. Their house is bigger, their car newer, their vacation more glamorous. This comparison fuels envy, which fuels more stress. But comparison is a trick of the mind. It blinds us to our own blessings. It keeps us running in a race with no finish line. The teachings remind us to return to our own path, to see what is present here, to honor the life we have been given. When we let go of comparison, gratitude blossoms. And gratitude is the antidote to craving. Where gratitude lives, the restless cry of not enough grows quiet. We see that we already hold treasures beyond price. Breath, life, love, awareness. There is a story of a poor farmer who once offered a handful of rice to a traveling monk. The monk accepted it with deep gratitude. Later, that farmer said he felt richer than ever before. Why? Because in giving, he realized he still had enough, and enough was all he needed. His wealth was not in gold, but in contentment. This story carries a timeless lesson. Contentment is the greatest wealth. It cannot be stolen, cannot be lost, cannot be destroyed. It is born from within, and it shines outward, illuminating everything it touches. So the journey with money is not about denial or indulgence. It is about balance. It is about seeing clearly. It is about remembering that while money can buy comfort, it cannot buy freedom. Freedom arises when we loosen the grip, when we embrace enough, when we live with open hands and generous hearts. Then money takes its rightful place, not as master, not as enemy, but as servant, as tool, as teacher. And as we bring this reflection to a close, notice how money is not separate from our relationships. Much of our stress about money comes not from the numbers themselves, but from how money affects the people we love. Arguments with partners, misunderstandings with family, silent comparisons with friends, all of these show how tightly wealth and connection are woven together. If money reflects our fears, relationships reflect our hearts. They reveal our deepest longings, to be seen, to be valued, to be loved. And so, having loosened our grip on money, we turn now to the next great challenge of modern life, the fragile, powerful, and sometimes painful world of relationships. Relationships are the beating heart of human life. We are born into connection. From the first cry as an infant, we reach out for touch, for care, for love. And throughout our lives, we continue to seek this bond through family, friendship, partnership, and community. Yet for all their beauty, relationships are also one of the greatest sources of suffering. Many of the deepest wounds we carry are not from strangers, but from those closest to us. Words spoken in anger, love withheld in silence, trust broken by betrayal. These moments echo in the heart long after they pass. And so, relationships often become a place where joy and pain are tangled together, leaving us both hungry for closeness and afraid of it. In modern life, the struggle grows even sharper. The speed of technology promises connection, but often delivers isolation. Social media shows endless images of perfect families, happy couples, smiling friends. Yet behind the screen, many sit alone, comparing their lives to illusions, feeling smaller with each scroll. Relationships suffer under this pressure. Couples argue over time spent on phones. Parents and children drift apart, speaking less while staring more at glowing screens. Friends feel replaced by digital likes rather than genuine presence. In a culture of constant distraction, true connection becomes rare. And the irony is painful. Never before have we been so connected, and never before have so many felt so alone. Beneath this loneliness lies a deeper misunderstanding. We often enter relationships seeking to be completed. We believe another person will heal our wounds, erase our fears, fill the emptiness we carry. At first, the excitement feels like salvation, but over time, the cracks appear. No human being can carry the impossible weight of being someone else's savior. And when they fail, disappointment sets in. We blame them, we blame ourselves. We question the relationship altogether. The cycle of hope and hurt repeats. What we forget is this: the foundation of every healthy relationship is not the other person. It is our own heart, steady, whole, and awake. Without this foundation, even the strongest bond crumbles. The Buddha taught that clinging is the root of suffering. Nowhere is this more visible than in love. We cling to expectations that our partner must always understand, our children must always obey, our friends must always be available. When reality does not meet these expectations, we feel betrayed. Yet the truth is, people are not possessions. They are not statues carved to fit our desires. They are living, changing, imperfect beings, just as we are. To cling to them as if they could be permanent is to invite heartbreak. But to love with open hands, to care deeply without trying to control, is to discover a freedom in love that is vast and tender. Imagine holding a bird in your hand. If you grip too tightly, you harm it. If you open your hand completely, it may fly away. The balance lies in gentle care, holding just enough to support, yet light enough to allow freedom. This is the practice of love without attachment. It does not mean indifference. It means loving so fully that you do not need to own. It means honoring another's path, even when it differs from your own. In this way, love becomes not a cage but a field, wide and open, where both can grow. Another common wound in relationships is communication. We speak, but we do not listen. Or we listen only to reply, not to understand. Misunderstandings multiply, small grievances grow into walls, silence hardens into distance. The Buddha emphasized right speech, words that are truthful, kind, and useful. Imagine how relationships would change if every word were chosen with care, if we paused before speaking to ask, is this true? Is this kind? Is this necessary? Such speech does not guarantee harmony, but it creates space for trust. And trust is the soil where love grows strong. Conflict is inevitable. Even the most loving relationships face storms. But suffering comes not from conflict itself, but from the way we handle it. We often rush to win arguments, forgetting that victory over a loved one is no victory at all. The teaching invites us to see conflict as an opportunity, to understand more deeply, to practice patience, to cultivate compassion. When we approach conflict with curiosity instead of blame, with gentleness instead of aggression, we discover that even pain can strengthen the bond. The storm does not destroy. It clears the air. Consider also the role of forgiveness. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other to suffer. We carry grudges for years, replaying the hurt, feeding the flame. But forgiveness is not about excusing the wrong. It is about freeing ourselves from the weight of anger. When we forgive, we release the chain that binds us to the past. We allow space for healing, for growth, for peace. This does not mean we must stay in harmful situations. Sometimes the most loving act is to walk away. But even in leaving, we can release bitterness. Forgiveness is the gift we give ourselves, a gift that restores the heart's capacity to love God in modern relationships. Another challenge arises, the demand for perfection. We expect ourselves to be flawless partners, perfect parents, loyal friends without fail. And when we fall short, shame takes root. But the truth is, imperfection is the nature of life. We will forget, we will fail, we will disappoint. The question is not whether we fall, but how we rise. When we bring compassion to ourselves, we extend it more easily to others. Self-compassion is the soil of compassion for all. Without it, love becomes brittle, easily broken. With it, love becomes resilient, bending without breaking as we reflect on relationships. We begin to see that they are not simply sources of joy or pain. They are classrooms. In them, we learn patience, generosity, honesty, humility. They reveal the places where we cling and the places where we fear. They teach us the art of loving without chains, of speaking with care, of forgiving with courage. They are not perfect, nor are they meant to be. They are practice grounds for the heart. And in this practice, we slowly uncover the deeper truth, that love is not something we take from others, but something we awaken within ourselves and share freely. Yet, even as relationships can heal, they can also magnify another silent struggle of our age: anxiety. The fear of losing love, the worry of not being enough, the endless questioning of what others think. These anxieties weave themselves into the fabric of our connections. And so, as we step forward from relationships, we must now turn to the restless undercurrent that often drives them, the anxious mind. Even with love's beauty and all its lessons, relationships still bring us face to face with our deepest insecurities. We may speak of devotion and trust, yet in quiet moments we wonder, am I truly loved? Am I enough? What if this person leaves? These questions often live unspoken in the heart, yet they shape our behavior, pulling us into patterns of fear and control. We try to hold tighter, demand reassurance, or withdraw to avoid rejection. In doing so, we build the very distance we fear. Relationships, instead of being sanctuaries, become arenas of anxiety. And so we discover that the greatest obstacle to connection is not always the other person. It is the restless, clinging mind within ourselves. The Buddhist teachings offer a radical shift. Instead of looking outward for security, they point us inward. They remind us that true safety cannot be found in another person, because all beings are impermanent. People change, relationships evolve, life moves. To anchor our peace in what is fragile is to live in constant fear. But when we anchor in awareness, in the spacious presence that notices thoughts and feelings without clinging, then love becomes lighter, freer, and more real. We no longer love as beggars, demanding to be completed. We love as whole beings, offering freely what overflows from within. One powerful practice in relationships is deep listening. Not listening to fix, not listening to defend, but listening simply to understand. When we set aside our own noise and give another the gift of full presence, we touch their heart in a way words alone cannot. This practice transforms not only the other, but also ourselves. As we soften into true listening, we discover compassion rising naturally. Their pain becomes less foreign. Their joy becomes easier to celebrate. And slowly, the wall between self and other begins to dissolve. We see that their happiness and ours are intertwined, like two flames rising from the same fire. Another practice is mindfulness in speech. How many wounds are caused not by deliberate cruelty, but by careless words? A harsh tone, a thoughtless comment, a criticism spoken in frustration. These leave scars deeper than we imagine. Practicing mindful speech means pausing before words arise, asking, does this build or does this break? Is this said with love or with pride? The Buddha taught that words should be truthful, kind, and timely. Truth without kindness becomes a weapon. Kindness without truth becomes dishonesty. The balance of both is the path to trust. And trust is the soil in which intimacy grows strong roots. But even with listening and mindful speech, conflict is inevitable. No two paths are identical. No two hearts beat exactly the same rhythm. Conflict is not failure. It is a natural part of life shared together. The question is not whether conflict appears, but how we meet it. Many rush to win, to prove themselves right, to make the other wrong. Yet victory in this sense is hollow. What is the use of winning an argument if love is lost in the process? The wiser path is to meet conflict with humility, to ask not, "How can I win?" but "What can I learn?" This openness turns conflict into a teacher, guiding us deeper into patience, compassion, and wisdom. Forgiveness also plays a central role. In every bond, there will be disappointment. We will hurt and be hurt. To carry resentment is to chain ourselves to the past. Forgiveness does not erase the wound, but it allows healing. It says, "I will not let anger own my heart." In forgiving, we release both the other and ourselves. Sometimes forgiveness means staying and rebuilding. Sometimes it means walking away without hatred. In both cases, it is an act of liberation. It frees love to flow again, even if it takes a new form. Another hidden challenge in relationships is the illusion of perfection. We look to our partners, children, or friends to be flawless, forgetting that imperfection is the truth of life. Expecting perfection is like demanding a rose without thorns. Love must include patience with flaws, tenderness with mistakes, and humor with quirks. Without this patience, love becomes brittle, easily broken. With it, love becomes resilient, able to bend without shattering. And this patience begins within. The more we embrace our own imperfections, the more gently we embrace those of others. Self-compassion becomes the well from which compassion for others flows. In the end, relationships are mirrors. They reflect the parts of ourselves we cannot see alone. They reveal our fears, our hopes, our capacity to love, and our tendency to cling. They challenge us, stretch us, break us open, and heal us. They are not meant to complete us, but to awaken us. When we approach them with mindfulness, with open hands instead of grasping fists, with listening instead of demands, they become places of profound growth. They teach us to love without chains, to forgive without bitterness, to speak with care, and to live with compassion. And yet, even with all this wisdom, another force often shapes our relationships. A force that shadows nearly every aspect of modern life: anxiety. The fear of rejection, the worry of the unknown, the restless need for control, all of these feed anxiety, which in turn feeds conflict and loneliness. To truly heal our relationships, we must look directly at this deeper current. Anxiety is the quiet hum beneath modern life, a sound so constant that many no longer notice it, yet it colors every thought and decision. It is the racing heart before a meeting, the knot in the stomach before opening an email, the restless thoughts that circle long after the lights are off and the house is still. Unlike fear, which responds to real danger, anxiety is a fear of shadows, of what might come, of what might go wrong. It is the mind rehearsing disasters that may never arrive, the body preparing for battles that never begin. And in this endless rehearsal, life itself slips by, moments lost to worry about a future that has not yet arrived. We tell ourselves that anxiety proves something is broken within us. But anxiety is not a flaw. It is the ancient alarm system of the body designed to protect. Long ago, this alertness kept our ancestors alive. Yet in the modern world, where most threats are not lions in the grass, but deadlines on a screen, this alarm misfires, ringing when no danger is present. We live in constant readiness, bodies tense, minds scanning for problems. And because we cannot simply fight or flee from a spreadsheet, a bill, or a conversation, the energy has nowhere to go. It turns inward, becoming exhaustion, panic, dread. Anxiety is not proof that we are weak. It is proof that we are human, trying to navigate a world that demands too much. What makes anxiety so painful is not only the fear, but the sense of isolation it brings. We believe we are alone in our struggle, that others are calm while we are broken. Yet nothing could be further from the truth. Beneath polished appearances, many are fighting the same invisible battles. A neighbor watering their lawn, the colleague smiling at their desk, the friend posting cheerful photos online, all may be carrying the same hidden storm. To see this is to soften. To realize we are not alone is to loosen anxiety's grip. Compassion grows when we recognize that the anxious heart beats, and all of us. The teachings of the Buddha offer not condemnation but invitation. They do not tell us to crush anxiety or banish it, but to see it clearly, to sit with it, to let it pass like clouds across the sky. One practice begins with the breath. In moments of panic, the breath becomes shallow, quick, tight. By turning attention gently to the breath, we discover a thread of calm. Not forced calm, not dramatic change, but a steadying presence. We breathe in, we breathe out, and we begin to remember that beneath the storm of thought lies a stillness untouched. The breath is always here, patient, faithful, waiting to anchor us when the mind spins out of control. Another practice is noticing the body. Anxiety is not only in the mind. It is written in the shoulders, the jaw, the gaze. Our eyes dart, our muscles tighten, our chests constrict. The Buddha taught that awareness of the body is awareness of the present moment. When we soften the gaze, relax the shoulders, unclench the jaw, the body sends a message to the mind. It is safe to rest. This is not about denial, but about shifting from panic to presence. The body becomes a doorway, leading us back from the anxious future into the living now. Yet perhaps the most profound teaching is this: anxiety grows from craving control. We want to know what will happen, to secure every outcome, to prevent every loss. But life does not bend to our plans. The more we cling, the more restless we become. Anxiety is not the enemy. Clinging is. The path forward is not to control more, but to release control, to accept uncertainty as the nature of life. This is not resignation. It is trust. It is the courage to live fully without guarantees, to open the heart even when the future is unknown. When we release the need to control, anxiety begins to loosen and space for peace appears. Consider the image of a deer in the forest. It is alert, sensing every sound, every shift in the wind. Yet it does not live in panic. It grazes, it rests, it moves gently until true danger arrives. Then it flees, and when the danger passes, it returns to calm. This is the model of wise awareness. We, too, can be alert without being consumed. We can notice thoughts without chasing them, feel sensations without drowning in them. This is mindfulness, watching without holding. In this watching, anxiety loses its anchor. It rises, it falls, it passes. We remain steady like the ground beneath the forest, supporting but not shaken. Still, the echoes of old fears often linger. Anxiety sometimes comes not from the future, but from the past memories unresolved, wounds unhealed. A harsh word from childhood, a failure long ago, a betrayal that cut deep. These experiences leave imprints in the body, resurfacing as unease in the present. The practice here is not to relive the story, but to feel the sensation fully, to sit with the knot in the stomach, the rush of heat, the tightness in the chest. When we stay with these sensations without judgment, the old echoes fade. Like a bell struck long ago, the sound finally softens when we let it ring without interference. Healing comes not by silencing the past, but by allowing it to pass through us. Anxiety also often attaches to our sense of self. We believe we must hold everything together, that it is all on us. This burden creates unbearable pressure. But the teachings on non-self remind us that this I is not as solid as it seems. We are not fixed, separate beings carrying the world alone. We are part of a vast web of life, supported by countless conditions. To see this is to release the illusion of solitary burden. The anxious self dissolves into spacious awareness, and in that space, fear has nothing to cling to. We discover we are not fragile raindrops struggling to survive, but the vast ocean itself wide, steady, unshaken dot, so the path through anxiety is not a battle, but a gentle surrender. It is not about erasing fear, but about changing our relationship to it. We learn to breathe, to soften, to let go, to watch without clinging, to remember we are not alone. In this way, anxiety transforms from an enemy into a teacher, guiding us back to the present, back to compassion, back to the vast sky within us. And as we prepare to go deeper, we begin to see how anxiety connects to every part of life, especially to our sense of identity and self-worth. To truly understand its roots, we must look closely at the self we cling to, the self that feels fragile and afraid, even after we learn to breathe through anxiety, even after we soften the body and let go of control. The restless mind often returns. It whispers, "What if it comes back? What if I cannot handle it next time?" This is the trap of anxiety, the fear of fear itself. We worry not only about events, but about the very presence of anxiety, as if its return would prove we are broken. But the Buddha's wisdom reminds us that emotions are not permanent residents. They are visitors. They arrive, they stay for a time, and they leave. Anxiety is not our identity. It is a passing cloud across the vast sky of awareness. To believe otherwise is to mistake the cloud for the sky itself. This recognition changes everything. When we see anxiety not as who we are, but as what we experience, space opens around it. We can say, "This is anxiety, not me. This is a feeling, not my essence." The sense of self that clings tightly to fear begins to loosen. And as it loosens, anxiety loses its power to define us. This is the teaching of anatta, or non-self. It does not erase our uniqueness. It shows us that we are not limited to the narrow identity that worries and clings. We are larger, more spacious, more free than we imagine. Anxiety may arise, but it does not own the heart that observes it. One way to practice this is to sit quietly and watch thoughts as if they were leaves floating down a stream. Each thought passes, some heavy, some light, some dark, some bright. We do not need to chase or resist them. We simply watch them go. Anxiety often feels like a flood of thoughts crashing together. But when we step back into awareness, we see that each thought is just another leaf. The stream flows on. We are not the leaves. We are the stream itself, wide enough to carry them all. This shift from being the anxious thinker to being the spacious awareness is a liberation. It does not remove anxiety, but it removes its chains. The body also holds powerful keys to calming anxiety. Consider the eyes. When we stare too sharply, the body enters alert mode, as if danger were near. But when we soften the gaze, letting vision expand to the edges, the nervous system receives a signal of safety. Shoulders relax, breath deepens, the heart slows. This simple practice of a gentle gaze shows how anxiety is not only mental, but physical, and how small shifts in the body can transform the mind. To live with soft eyes is to live with a softer heart, one less ruled by fear. Another hidden truth of anxiety is that it often springs from love distorted by control. We worry endlessly about those we care for, convinced that vigilance will keep them safe. Parents lie awake fearing for children. Partners obsess over each other's choices. Friends carry guilt for not fixing every problem. Yet love tied to control becomes suffocation. The Bodhisattva path teaches a different way. Love with open hands. To care without clinging. To help without expecting return. To release outcomes we cannot govern. This open-handed love frees both ourselves and those we cherish. Anxiety shrinks when love is rooted not in control, but in compassion. Equanimity, or upekkha, is another treasure on this path. Many believe calm means the absence of movement, the erasure of emotion. But equanimity is not numbness. It is the ability to remain steady while waves rise and fall. Imagine a candle flame in a restless room. It flickers, it leans, but it does not go out. That is the practice of equanimity, to allow anxiety's flickers without panicking, to trust that emotions can be felt without destroying us. We discover that freedom does not mean never trembling. It means trusting that even as we tremble, we remain whole. This is the heart of resilience. Stories from the tradition remind us of this truth. One speaks of a monk who carried a fragile teacup. He cherished it, but he always remembered, this cup is already broken. By accepting its impermanence, he could use it joyfully without fear of loss. Anxiety often clings to what we might lose. But when we embrace impermanence, we live more fully. The cup may break, but until then, it holds tea, warmth, and beauty. Life may shift, but until then, it offers moments of connection, joy, and meaning. Anxiety loosens its grip when we see that the fear of loss need not rob us of present. Peace. Another teaching is to bring kindness directly to the anxious heart. Instead of saying, "Why am I like this? Why can't I be stronger?" we can say, "It's okay. Fear is here. May I be gentle with myself." This inner compassion is powerful medicine. It turns anxiety from an enemy into a wounded child, one that needs comfort, not punishment. When we meet anxiety with kindness, its sharpness softens. We discover that peace is not found in pushing feelings away, but in embracing them with tenderness. As we gather these threads: awareness, softness, open-handed love, equanimity, compassion, we see that anxiety, though painful, is also a guide. It points us back to presence, back to breath, back to the truth of impermanence. It teaches us that control is an illusion, that love without clinging is possible, that peace can coexist with trembling. Anxiety does not vanish forever, but it no longer rules. It becomes another wave in the ocean of life, rising and falling, while the ocean remains vast and free. And as we close this reflection on anxiety, notice how it leads naturally to the question of identity. For what is anxiety but the self trying to hold the world together? What is fear but the belief that I must control everything, must never fail, must always be strong? To truly move beyond anxiety, we must look directly at this I, this self we cling to, and see whether it is as solid as we believe. And so we turn now with courage to the next great doorway on this journey, the illusion of self and the freedom found beyond it. At the root of much anxiety lies a quiet but heavy thought. It is all on me. I must hold everything together. I must not fail. This voice of the self is relentless, whispering that our worth depends on performance, on control, on being strong at all times. And yet, beneath its urgency lies a deeper illusion, the belief in a solid, separate self that carries the entire burden of life alone. The Buddha called this illusion anatta, or non-self. It does not mean we do not exist. It means that the self we cling to, the one we believe is permanent, unchanging, and isolated, is not as real as it seems. To awaken to this truth is to loosen one of the deepest roots of suffering. Consider how we construct identity. From childhood, we gather labels: son, daughter, student, achiever, failure, friend, outcast. Each label becomes a brick in the wall of me. We defend these bricks fiercely, fearing that if one crumbles, the whole wall will collapse. A bad grade convinces us we are stupid. A breakup convinces us we are unlovable. A job loss convinces us we are worthless. Yet when we look closely, we see that identity shifts constantly. The child becomes an adult. The student becomes a teacher. The rejected becomes loved again. The unemployed finds new work. The wall is never solid. It is rebuilt every moment. To cling to it as permanent is to fight reality itself. The Buddha used the image of a chariot. A chariot is made of wheels, axles, a frame, a seat. None of these alone is a chariot. Only when combined do we give it the name. And yet, even then, the parts can be taken apart and the chariot disappears. In the same way, the self is a collection of body, feelings, thoughts, and consciousness. None of these alone is you. Together, they create the sense of me. But when examined closely, this me dissolves. It is a label, a convenience, not an eternal truth. To cling to it as solid is to suffer. To see its emptiness is to find freedom. This teaching is not abstract philosophy. It touches daily life in profound ways. Think of how much stress comes from defending identity. We argue to prove we are right. We work endlessly to prove we are successful. We hide flaws to prove we are strong. But when the illusion of self softens, the need to defend weakens. A criticism no longer feels like a mortal wound because it does not attack something fixed. A failure no longer defines us because we are not a single unchanging story. We are a process, a flow, a living river. And a river does not panic when a rock appears. It simply flows around it. This shift also transforms our relationships. Much of conflict comes from clashing identities. My pride against yours, my belief against yours, my story against yours. But when we see that the self is not solid, our grip loosens. We no longer need to prove ourselves superior. We no longer need to cling to being right. Instead, we can listen, adapt, and respond with compassion. The walls between self and other thin, and we begin to see our shared humanity. The illusion of separateness dissolves into the truth of connection. And connection is the soil where love, patience, and peace naturally grow. One of the most powerful metaphors is the sky and the clouds. Thoughts, emotions, and identities are like clouds constantly shifting, forming, dissolving. Sometimes dark, sometimes light, sometimes stormy, sometimes calm. But behind them, always is the vast sky open, clear, spacious. That sky is awareness itself, untouched by any cloud. We mistake ourselves for the clouds, clinging to each shape as if it defines us forever. But when we realize we are the sky, the clouds lose their power to terrify. Anger passes. Joy passes. Anxiety passes. Even the story of me passes. But the sky remains boundless, free. This is the liberation the Buddha pointed toward to taste this truth. We practice observing thoughts and emotions without attaching to them. When anger arises, instead of saying, I am angry, we can say, anger is here. When fear arises, instead of saying, I am afraid, we can say, fear is present. This subtle shift separates awareness from identity. We are not the emotion. We are the one who notices it. And the moment we notice, the grip loosens. The storm begins to pass. Awareness is not shaken, even when emotions rage. This practice reveals that the self we defend so fiercely is only a collection of passing states. Behind them lies something vaster, more steady, more free. Of course, the illusion of self does not vanish overnight. The habit of clinging runs deep, but every moment of awareness plants a seed. Each time we step back and see thoughts as passing, emotions as temporary, labels as shifting, the seed of freedom grows. Over time, the roots of identity loosen. The anxious burden of holding everything together begins to dissolve. We realize we were never carrying the world alone. We were always part of a vast web of life, supported by air, water, earth, sunlight, and countless beings. The self shrinks, but life expands. And in this expansion, peace blossoms. This understanding also changes how we see death. Much of our fear comes from believing that when the self ends, everything ends. But if the self is not solid, what truly ends? The body returns to earth, the breath to air, the consciousness dissolves like a wave returning to the sea. Nothing is lost, only transformed. To see this is to fear less. Life and death are not enemies, but movements in the same dance. Anxiety about the end loosens when we realize there was never a solid I to be destroyed, only a flowing process, always changing, always becoming God. So the teaching of non-self is not a denial of life, but an invitation to live more freely. Without the chains of identity, we move more lightly. We take ourselves less seriously. We laugh more easily, forgive more quickly, love more openly. Life becomes less about defending me and more about being present for what is. And in this presence, suffering softens. The anxious self dissolves into the vastness of awareness, and what remains is peace. And yet, even as we glimpse this freedom, we notice how the body still holds the marks of fear. Anxiety is not only in the mind. It is etched in muscles, in breath, in gaze. To fully embody this freedom, we must bring the practice into the body itself. We must learn to soften the eyes, release the jaw, breathe into the shoulders. And so, having touched the illusion of self, we now turn to the body as a doorway, exploring how simple physical shifts can open us to inner calm. When we begin to see the self as a construction rather than a fixed truth, something remarkable happens. The chains of perfection loosen. No longer must we always be strong, always be right, always be admired. We recognize that these roles are costumes, not our essence. We can wear them when needed and set them down when they grow heavy. Life becomes more fluid, more playful. This does not mean we abandon responsibility or drift without purpose. It means we no longer confuse the roles we play with who we are. And in this freedom, the anxious weight of identity dissolves into lightness. Yet the illusion of self does not vanish easily. Our culture reinforces it at every turn. From advertisements telling us who we should be, to social media shaping curated versions of ourselves, to workplace hierarchies rewarding certain identities, and punishing others, the world constantly feeds the belief in a solid me. We are told to brand ourselves, market ourselves, prove ourselves. But this pursuit often deepens suffering. The more tightly we cling to an image, the more fragile we become. One failure, one criticism, one rejection threatens the entire structure. And so the cycle of anxiety continues, fueled by the desperate defense of identity. The Buddha offered another way. Instead of defending the self, dissolve into awareness. Instead of clinging to the chariot, see its parts, see its emptiness, and let go. This does not erase individuality, but reveals interconnection. The truth is that who we are is not contained within the walls of skin and bone. We are shaped by parents and ancestors, by teachers and friends, by earth and sky, by language and culture. To say I is to speak a shorthand for a vast web of conditions. When we see this, the self softens. We move from isolation to belonging, from defense to gratitude. We are not solitary beings struggling against the world. We are the world expressing itself in this moment. This perspective transforms how we hold suffering. If the self is not fixed, then pain is not permanent. If I am not solid, then my problem is not eternal. It too is part of the flow, rising and falling with conditions. This realization brings hope. We no longer feel doomed by past mistakes or trapped in current struggles. Life is movement, and movement means possibility. Even the deepest wound can heal. Even the darkest night can give way to dawn. To identify too tightly with pain is to chain ourselves to it. To see the self as fluid is to open the door to change. The practice of non-self also deepens compassion. When we cling to a solid self, We divide the world into me and you, us and them. We defend our group, our view, our identity, often at the expense of others. But when the illusion of separateness fades, the suffering of others feels less foreign. Their pain is not separate from ours, their joy not separate from ours. Compassion arises naturally when the walls of self grow thin. We act kindly not from duty, but from recognition. To care for another is to care for ourselves. This is the essence of interconnectedness, the great web in which all beings move together. One story tells of a monk asked to describe the self. He pointed to the body, then to feelings, then to thoughts, then to awareness. These are like the parts of a cart, he said. Together we call it a cart, but none of the parts is the cart itself. In the same way, none of our parts is me. Together they create the appearance, but the self is only a convenient name. To cling to it as ultimate truth is to suffer. To see its emptiness is to walk free. This freedom does not make us indifferent. It makes us alive, responsive, open. With no heavy self to defend, we meet each moment freshly, without baggage, without fear. This truth also touches how we face mortality. Much of our fear of death arises from the belief that a solid self will be annihilated. But if the self is a process, not a permanent entity, then death is not destruction, but transformation. Like a wave returning to the sea, like a flame passing its light to another candle, life continues in new forms. To see this loosens the grip of fear. We realize that clinging to identity blinds us not only in life, but also in death. Freedom is found not in holding on, but in letting go, in trusting the flow that has always carried us. Practicing non-self does not mean we deny our individuality. It means we hold it lightly. We can still enjoy our talents, pursue our passions, tell our stories. But we do not mistake them for ultimate truth. We see them as expressions of conditions, like songs sung for a time before fading into silence. And when they fade, we do not panic. We bow to impermanence. We bow to the mystery that gives rise to each moment. This bow is not defeat. It is liberation. It is the recognition that nothing need be permanent for it to be beautiful. And yet, while this teaching frees the mind, the body still holds tension. Even when the self loosens, the shoulders may remain tight, the eyes strained, the chest heavy. To bring wisdom into the body, we must learn practices that soften its grip, that release the physical marks of fear. For the body and mind are not separate. To free one is to free the other. And so, having walked through the illusion of self, we now turn to the body itself, exploring how a softened gaze, a relaxed posture, and a gentle breath can open the door to calm. The mind often feels like the storm, but the body is where the storm leaves its marks. Stress and anxiety do not live only as thoughts. They are etched into the way we hold ourselves, into the way we breathe, into the way we see. Shoulders lift toward the ears as if bracing for an unseen blow. The jaw clenches, the chest tightens, the breath grows shallow, and the eyes are windows to the world, narrow and dark, scanning for danger, gripping each object with sharp focus. Without realizing it, the body sends constant messages to the nervous system. We are not safe. We must stay on guard. This is how the cycle of tension sustains itself, long after the original threat has passed. Buddhist traditions have long understood this connection. They teach that the body is not separate from the mind, but part of the same fabric. To calm one is to calm the other. And among the many practices handed down, one is surprisingly simple yet profound, softening the gaze. Instead of staring with intensity, instead of letting the eyes grasp each object like a hand, we allow the vision to expand, to soften, to rest. It is like shifting from a spotlight to a lantern. The world is still visible, but we are no longer straining to control it. The body receives a subtle but powerful signal. It is okay to let go. Think of how a frightened animal looks, wide eyes, sharp, unblinking, ready to flee. Now think of how the same animal looks when it rests in safety, eyes half closed, movements unhurried, breath slow. Our bodies are not so different. A tense gaze keeps us trapped in vigilance, telling the nervous system to prepare for attack. A soft gaze whispers safety, inviting the body to exhale. This shift may seem small, but it ripples outward. The jaw loosens, the shoulders drop, the chest opens. The mind follows, finding calm in the body's quiet invitation. This practice does not mean closing the eyes or withdrawing from life. It is not about ignoring the world, but about relating to it differently. When we soften the gaze, we allow space around objects instead of locking onto them. We see the room not as a collection of threats, but as a field of openness. We feel ourselves not as hunters chasing focus, but as beings moving gently within a larger whole. In this way, softening the gaze becomes more than a physical act. It becomes a doorway to a new way of being. To explore this, try a simple exercise. Sit comfortably and fix your eyes on a single point, perhaps a spot on the wall. Notice the tension that arises, the narrowing of focus, the tightening of muscles, the slight strain in the forehead. Now, without closing your eyes, let your vision expand. Notice the edges of the room, the space around objects, the way light fills the air. Feel how the body shifts, the shoulders softening, the breath deepening, the mind settling. This is the difference between gripping the world and allowing it to be. One creates stress, the other creates space. This lesson extends beyond the eyes. Every part of the body tells the story of how we live. A clenched fist speaks of anger or fear. A hunched back speaks of burdens carried too long. A shallow breath speaks of constant readiness. But just as the body reflects the mind, it can also guide the mind. When we unclench the fist, the heart softens. When we straighten the back, confidence rises. When we breathe deeply, the mind begins to trust. The body is not just a victim of stress. It is a teacher, a guide, a pathway back to peace. In meditation practices, this is called embodied awareness. It is the art of paying attention not only to thoughts, but to sensations. When we notice the tightness in the chest without judgment, we give it space to release. When we breathe into the knot in the stomach, we allow it to soften. When we sit with the tingling in the hands or the heaviness in the shoulders, we begin to see that these sensations too are impermanent. They arise, they linger, they fade. Just as thoughts are clouds in the sky, sensations are ripples in the body. We are the awareness in which they appear, not the sensations themselves. The power of embodied awareness is that it interrupts the cycle of anxiety. Usually, the mind triggers the body, and the body triggers the mind, spiraling into panic. But when we notice the body and gently release tension, the spiral begins to unwind. The mind receives new messages: safety, ease, space. This is why practices like mindful breathing, yoga, tai chi, and walking meditation are so effective. They use the body as the doorway to peace. They remind us that freedom is not only an idea, but an experience we can feel in our muscles, in our breath, in our gaze. Another aspect of this practice is learning to be gentle with the body. Many of us carry frustration toward it. We see it as weak when it trembles, as broken when it aches, as betraying us when it becomes ill. But the body is not an enemy. It is a companion, carrying us through every moment of life. When we bring kindness to it, when we treat it not as a machine to be forced, but as a friend to be cared for, healing begins. Anxiety softens not through violence, but through tenderness. A soft gaze, a deep breath, a gentle touch, all of these are ways of saying to the body, you are safe. You are loved. You can rest. This approach also teaches us humility. The body reminds us that we are not separate minds floating above the world, but embodied beings, part of the earth, subject to its rhythms. Just as the tide rises and falls, the breath rises and falls. Just as the seasons change, the body changes. To fight this truth is to suffer. To accept it is to find harmony. When we honor the body, we honor the earth. When we soften the gaze, we soften our way of living. And in that softening, we discover a new strength, the strength of gentleness, the power of peace. As we begin to practice in this way, we realize that anxiety is not dissolved by force, but by space. The mind does not need to win a war against itself. It needs to be reminded of safety, of openness, of calm. The body becomes the bridge, showing the way. A soft gaze, a relaxed jaw, a deep breath. These simple acts carry profound wisdom. They remind us that freedom is not found in distant theories, but in this very body, this very moment. And as we learn to trust this, the world feels less hostile, less overwhelming. We carry within us the ability to return, again and again, to calm. Yet even as we practice, echoes of the past still rise. Old wounds carried in the body, old fears stored in the chest or stomach, often resurface when we grow still. These echoes are not mistakes. They are opportunities. They are the body's way of asking to be heard, to be healed. And so, from the practice of softening the gaze, we now move to the next doorway, learning to sit with the echoes of the past, the lingering bells of pain that ring within us, and discovering how presence can finally bring release. When we practice softening the gaze and easing the body, we often notice that silence reveals what busyness once hid. The moment we relax, old memories, long-buried fears, and subtle aches rise to the surface. A sudden heaviness in the chest may carry the echo of grief. A knot in the stomach may carry the memory of shame. A trembling hand may recall years of worry. This can feel unsettling, as if calm has opened a door we meant to keep locked. But this too is part of healing. The body holds stories the mind has forgotten. To soften is to allow these stories to surface, not to overwhelm us, but to be released. The Buddha compared unhealed pain to a bell struck long ago. Even after the strike, the sound lingers. Many of us live with these lingering vibrations, unacknowledged but shaping our lives. They rise as anxiety at night, as tension in the shoulders, as restlessness in the heart. When we try to silence them with distraction or denial, they remain. But when we turn toward them with awareness, we allow the bell's sound to fade naturally. This is the power of embodied presence. It does not erase the past, but gives it space to complete itself, to resolve, to pass. One practice for this is simply naming what arises. When a wave of tension appears, we can say gently to ourselves, "Tightness is here." When sadness wells up, we can whisper, "Sadness is present." This naming is not analysis. It is recognition. It is a way of holding the sensation with kindness rather than resistance. And in that recognition, the grip often loosens. We realize that the sensation is not permanent, not personal, not defining. It is simply passing through. Awareness is the vast container in which it comes and goes. This shift from identification to observation is one of the great liberations of the path. Another practice is breathing into the sensation. If the chest feels heavy, we place attention there and breathe gently, as if the breath were a hand of comfort resting on the wound. We do not force release. We simply allow space. Over time, the body responds. The knot softens, the heaviness lightens, the trembling steadies. This is not magic, but the natural response of a body given permission to rest. For too long, we have demanded it stay tense, stay ready, stay armored. When we finally say, "It is safe now," the body sighs in relief. This way of being with the body also changes how we see ourselves. Instead of treating pain as an enemy, we treat it as a messenger. Tension says, "You have carried too much." Fear says, "You have longed for safety." Fatigue says, "You have forgotten to rest." These are not enemies, but reminders. When we listen, we grow wiser. When we ignore, we grow harder. In this listening, the body becomes not a prison, but a teacher, guiding us back to balance, to compassion, to the rhythm of life itself. Softening the body also teaches us about impermanence. Every sensation arises and passes. No tension lasts forever. No pain is eternal. Even the deepest ache shifts when we bring awareness to it. This does not mean all suffering disappears, but it means we no longer believe in its permanence. We see that it too is part of the river, flowing, changing, dissolving. This realization brings courage. We learn that we can sit with pain, that we do not need to run. The storm will pass. The sky remains dot in daily life. This practice has profound effects. When stress rises at work, we can pause, soften the gaze, release the shoulders, and breathe. When conflict stirs at home, we can notice the tension in the chest, place a hand there, and offer kindness before speaking. When loneliness creeps in at night, we can sit with the ache, breathe into it, and remember that it too will pass. These simple acts transform ordinary moments. They remind us that peace is not hidden in distant places, but available in this very body, this very breath, this very now. And as the body softens, the mind begins to trust. A softened gaze becomes a softened heart. A relaxed breath becomes an open mind. The cycles of fear and tension no longer dominate. Instead, gentleness takes root. We discover strength not in armor, but in openness. We discover resilience not in hardness, but in flexibility. This is the paradox of the body as a doorway. The more we soften, the stronger we become. There is a story of a monk who was once asked how he could remain calm, even in great difficulty. He replied, "Because I have learned to live like bamboo. When the storm comes, bamboo bends, but it does not break." Our bodies too can learn this wisdom. When we soften, we bend with life's winds. We no longer shatter under pressure. We return upright when the storm passes, rooted and alive. This is the gift of embodied practice. Resilience through gentleness. As we close this reflection on the body, we see that it is not separate from the mind, but a mirror of it. When the body is tense, the mind is restless. When the body softens, the mind finds space. The path to freedom is not only in thought, but in posture, in breath, in gaze. And as we learn to live with the body at ease, we prepare ourselves for the deeper teachings of impermanence. For just as sensations rise and fall, so too does every aspect of life. To truly find peace, we must embrace the truth that nothing lasts forever, not pain, not joy, not even life itself. And so, from the body as a doorway, we now step into the vast truth of impermanence and the freedom it holds. Nothing in life lasts forever. This truth is so simple, so obvious, that we often overlook it. Flowers bloom, then fade. Seasons change. Children grow. Parents age. Homes crumble. And even mountains are worn down by time. And yet, despite seeing impermanence everywhere, we resist it fiercely. We cling to youth, to health, to relationships, to success, as if they could remain unchanged forever. When they inevitably shift, we feel shocked, betrayed, even broken. This is the root of much suffering, not impermanence itself, but our refusal to accept it. The Buddha called this truth anicca, the constant change at the heart of all things. Impermanence is not only visible in grand cycles of life and death, but in the smallest moments. Each breath rises and falls. Each thought appears and vanishes. Each sound echoes and fades. Life is not a solid block, but a stream, flowing from one moment to the next. Yet the illusion of permanence is strong. We freeze experiences in our minds, replaying them as if they were fixed. We cling to the joy of the past or the pain of the past, forgetting that both were already gone. This clinging binds us to suffering, like trying to hold water in our fists. The tighter we grip, the more it slips away. But impermanence is not only a source of sorrow, it is also the source of hope. Because all things change, no pain is eternal. Because all things pass, wounds can heal. The darkest night gives way to dawn. The deepest grief softens with time. The harshest storm clears to reveal the sky. If life were fixed, suffering would be unending. But because life is impermanent, new possibilities are always arising. Every ending opens the door to a beginning. Every loss creates the space for something new. Impermanence is not only the cause of suffering, it is also the condition for freedom. Asterisk, consider the image of a river. No two moments of the river are the same. The water that touches your hand now is gone in an instant, replaced by new water, flowing endlessly. Yet we still call it the river. In the same way, we think of ourselves as fixed cells, but in truth, we are changing every moment. Cells die and are replaced. Thoughts rise and vanish. Emotions shift like clouds. The me of yesterday is not the me of today. To see this clearly is to loosen the desperate grip on identity. It is to realize that we, too, are impermanent rivers, always flowing, never fixed. This truth also transforms how we hold joy. Often, when happiness arrives, we grasp it tightly, fearing it will leave. But grasping makes us anxious. Instead of enjoying joy, we suffocate it with our need to keep it. Impermanence teaches a gentler way. When joy arises, savor it fully, knowing it is precious, precisely because it is fleeting. Like a rainbow after rain, its beauty lies in its fragility. To live this way is to love more deeply, not less. It is to cherish each moment not as a possession, but as a gift, shining for a time before passing on. Impermanence also changes how we hold loss. When someone we love dies, grief cuts deep. We want them back, unchanged, eternal. But death, too, is part of impermanence. To deny it is to deny life itself. This does not mean we should not grieve. Grief is natural, a reflection of love. But in time, impermanence teaches us to see that what we loved in them, kindness, laughter, presence, has not vanished. It has transformed, living on in memory, in influence, in the ripple of their actions through the world. The flower has fallen, but its fragrance lingers in the air. This perspective does not erase pain, but gives it a wider frame, one in which love continues even after form has changed. The practice of impermanence also prepares us for our own mortality. We spend much of life pretending we will not die, pushing the thought aside, building lives as though they will last forever. But death is certain. The only uncertainty is when. To face this truth is not morbid, it is liberating. It awakens urgency, clarity, gratitude. When we remember that life is fragile, we waste less time on resentment, less energy on trivial pursuits. We live more fully in the now. Each breath becomes precious. Each act of kindness becomes meaningful. Death is not the enemy, but the teacher, reminding us of what truly matters. In Buddhist practice, monks sometimes meditate on decaying bodies, not to create fear, but to awaken acceptance. They see that the body, so carefully cared for, will one day dissolve into earth. This is not meant to strip life of beauty, but to strip away illusion. When we face impermanence honestly, we stop clinging to what cannot last. We begin to appreciate what is here, now. The taste of food, the sound of laughter, the warmth of the sun all become more vivid when we know they are fleeting. Impermanence sharpens our awareness, making life more vibrant, not less. Even suffering itself reveals impermanence. Think of the times when anxiety felt unbearable, when grief felt endless, when anger felt overwhelming. Yet here you are, still breathing, those storms having passed. In the moment, the pain seemed eternal. But no storm lasts forever. This truth gives us courage. When new pain arises, we can remind ourselves, this too will pass. We need not resist it or despair. We can sit with it, knowing it is temporary, knowing that beyond it lies calm. Impermanence also teaches humility. We may build empires, achieve fame, gather wealth, but time will eventually erase them all. What endures is not what we cling to, but how we live. Acts of kindness ripple outward, long after possessions are gone. Compassion leaves traces that no decay can erase. Wisdom shared becomes a seed in another's heart, blooming long after we are gone. To accept impermanence is to shift our focus from what cannot last to what truly matters. It is to live not for monuments, but for moments, not for control, but for connection. And yet, embracing impermanence is not easy. The mind clings instinctively, fearing change as loss. But each time we soften, each time we let go, we taste a little freedom. The grip weakens, the fear loosens, the heart opens. Impermanence, once seen as enemy, becomes ally. It becomes the reminder that all things pass, that all things transform, that life is a river, not a stone. And when we live in harmony with this truth, we discover a peace that clinging could never give dot. As we continue, we will see that impermanence not only shapes life and death, but also shapes the way we pursue meaning itself. For if nothing lasts, what then is the purpose of our striving? How do we find stability in a world of constant change? These questions lead us to the heart of the next reflection, the search for meaning, and how to walk the path with wisdom when everything around us is in motion. When we first hear the truth of impermanence, it can feel heavy. We resist it, fearing that if nothing lasts, then nothing matters. But as the teaching deepens, we begin to see the opposite. Because nothing lasts, everything matters. Each smile, each breath, each act of kindness becomes precious precisely because it will not return in the same way again. Life's beauty is inseparable from its fragility. The blooming of a flower is made more exquisite by the knowledge that it will fade. A sunset moves us because we know it cannot stay. To embrace impermanence is to awaken to life's vividness, to see not just with the eyes, but with the heart. This shift changes the way we live. Instead of clinging, we learn to cherish. Instead of demanding permanence, we learn to savor presence. Imagine eating a piece of fruit. If we expect it to last forever, we miss its sweetness. But if we know it is fleeting, we taste it more fully, grateful for every bite. Life is the same. The more we cling to permanence, the more joy slips through our fingers. The more we accept impermanence, the more deeply we drink from the cup of the present moment. This is why mindfulness is often described as the practice of remembering that now is all we have, and now is enough. Impermanence also reveals the futility of endless striving. Much of modern life is spent chasing stability in a world that cannot offer it. We pile up possessions, believing they will secure us. We chase achievements, believing they will define us. We fight aging, believing youth can be preserved. But possessions break, achievements are forgotten, youth slips away. To fight impermanence is to fight reality itself. And reality always wins. The wiser path is not to resist, but to align with the truth. When we stop demanding permanence, suffering eases. We no longer feel betrayed when change arrives, because we no longer expected anything else. This acceptance also transforms how we relate to others. Relationships end through distance, disagreement, or death. Clinging to them as if they will last forever, creates pain. But when we embrace impermanence, we love more freely. We no longer say, "Stay forever." We say, "I am grateful for you now." We no longer suffocate with fear of loss. We breathe more openly, allowing love to be what it is, a gift, not a possession. This freedom deepens intimacy. It allows us to meet each moment of connection with presence instead of anxiety, tenderness instead of control. Another gift of impermanence is resilience. When we remember that every storm passes, we do not despair in the midst of hardship. Grief still cuts, but it does not destroy hope. Fear still shakes, but it does not paralyze forever. Even joy, when it fades, leaves behind gratitude rather than bitterness. This resilience is not denial. It is wisdom born of seeing life as it is. It is the quiet strength of knowing that no state, pleasant or painful, will last forever. We are not trapped in any moment. We are carried by the river of change, and the river always moves forward. There is a well-known teaching, "This too shall pass." It is a phrase often repeated, but its depth is easy to overlook. It does not mean we should dismiss our experiences. It means we should hold them lightly. When joy arises, savor it, knowing it will pass. When sorrow arises, endure it, knowing it will pass. This balance prevents arrogance in success and despair in failure. It steadies the heart, reminding us that all things are transient. It is not a call to indifference, but to equanimity, a steady flame that continues to burn as the winds of change blow. To fully integrate this truth, we must also face our own mortality. Death is the ultimate impermanence. It is the change we cannot reverse, the ending we cannot avoid. Many live in denial of it, yet denial only deepens fear. When we face death directly, life opens in a new way. Each day becomes precious, each gesture meaningful, each word important. We begin to live with urgency, not in panic, but in clarity. We stop wasting energy on grudges, on trivial pursuits, on endless comparison. We choose love more quickly, forgiveness more easily, kindness more naturally. Death, far from being the enemy, becomes the teacher that awakens us to life. In Buddhist practice, impermanence is not only an idea, but a daily meditation. We notice the rising and falling of the breath, the fleeting nature of sounds, the constant shifting of thoughts. With each observation, we remember, change is the law of life. This memory brings calm. We no longer need to grasp each thought as truth, each feeling as permanent, each situation as final. We learn to flow with change instead of fighting it. And in this flow, peace arises. There is a story of a wise teacher who once held up a glass of water and said, "This glass is already broken." The students were puzzled, but the teacher explained, "I love this glass. It holds my water, it reflects the light, it makes a lovely sound when tapped. But one day it will fall, or be crushed, or wear away. For me, the glass is already broken. And because I know this, I can fully enjoy it now." This is the heart of impermanence. To live as if the glass is already broken, not with despair, but with gratitude. To love people, places, and moments, not because they will last, but because they are here now. As we close this reflection on impermanence, we see it as not a curse, but a gift. It is the truth that frees us from clinging, the truth that deepens love, the truth that gives hope in suffering. It is the reminder that life is not about holding on, but about showing up. Each moment is an invitation to live, to love, to awaken. And as we carry this truth, we are led naturally to the next question. If all is impermanent, how do we find meaning? If nothing lasts, what makes life worth living? These questions guide us into the next reflection, where we explore the search for meaning and the wisdom that gives direction in a world of constant change. When we begin to understand impermanence, A new question arises almost immediately. If nothing lasts, what is the point? If all that we love will fade, if our bodies will weaken and die, if even the stars will burn out one day, what meaning can life truly hold? This question is not abstract. It echoes in the quiet moments of modern life, in the tired worker wondering why they strive day after day, in the student questioning the purpose of endless exams, in the parent awake at night, wondering if all their sacrifice will matter in the end. Beneath all our striving lies this silent question. Why? Why live? Why work? Why love? When everything passes? In the search for meaning, many turn to possessions, believing that if they build enough, they will leave something behind. Others turn to achievements, hoping that success will give life significance. Still others turn to relationships, believing love will be the anchor that endures. Yet time shows the fragility of each path. Possessions decay, achievements are forgotten, even relationships shift and change. None of these can provide the ultimate stability we crave. And so, despite our efforts, many still feel an emptiness, a quiet ache that whispers, "Is this all there is?" The Buddha's teachings offer a different approach. Instead of seeking meaning in what is permanent, they invite us to find meaning in presence. Life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a path to be walked. Meaning is not hidden in some distant achievement, but woven into the fabric of daily life. To be fully present, to live with compassion, to act with wisdom, this is where true purpose lies. In this view, the question shifts. It is no longer, what lasting mark will I leave? But how can I live this moment fully, kindly, wisely? Meaning is not about permanence, but about depth. Not about how long something lasts, but how deeply it is lived. Consider a candle. It burns for a time, then extinguishes. Its light does not last forever, yet in its burning, it brings warmth and illumination. Its meaning lies not in duration, but in the light it gives while it burns. Our lives are the same. We, too, are brief flames. But in our brief time, we can shine with compassion, with kindness, with joy. The measure of life is not length, but luminosity. And when we live this way, even though the flame eventually fades, its warmth continues in those it touched. Another perspective is that meaning arises in connection. When we live only for ourselves, life often feels empty. But when we live for others, when we ease their suffering, share their joy, nurture their growth, life takes on depth. This is the essence of compassion. The Buddha did not speak of meaning as something to be owned, but as something to be shared. To live meaningfully is to recognize that our lives are bound up with all others. Our well-being is tied to theirs, our joy intertwined with theirs. Meaning is found not in isolation, but in interconnection, not in selfish gain, but in selfless giving. Yet this giving is not sacrifice in the sense of losing ourselves. It is expression. Just as a flower blooms not to prove anything, but simply because blooming is its nature, so too does compassion arise naturally when we see clearly. The search for meaning ends not in exhaustion, but in expression of our deepest humanity, of our inherent capacity for kindness. To live meaningfully is to live in alignment with what is most true in us, which is not greed or fear, but compassion and wisdom. Stories from the tradition illustrate this. One tells of a monk who spent years searching for enlightenment, traveling from teacher to teacher, studying every teaching. Yet still he felt unsatisfied, as though something was missing. One day, while sitting by a river, he saw a woman carrying her sick child. She had little strength, but she held the child with complete love, without hesitation, without calculation. In that moment, the monk understood. The meaning of life is not hidden in grand ideas, but in love expressed through action. Here and now, the search for meaning is fulfilled not in what we gain, but in how we give. This does not mean it is always grand or dramatic. It is often found in the simplest acts. Listening deeply to a friend, offering a smile to a stranger, cooking a meal with care, sitting quietly with one's breath. These acts may seem small, but their ripple is vast. A kind word can ease a burden carried for years. A single gesture can restore faith in humanity. When we live with presence and compassion, even the smallest moment becomes meaningful. Meaning is not measured by scale, but by sincerity. At the same time, the search for meaning also requires courage. Modern culture often sells shallow substitutes: status, possessions, fame. To reject these and choose depth instead can feel countercultural. It requires the courage to say, enough, to step off the treadmill of endless striving, to value presence over performance. But this courage is rewarded with freedom. The one who stops chasing external validation discovers the richness of inner peace. The one who stops clinging to permanence discovers the beauty of impermanence. In this courage, the search for meaning transforms into the living of meaning, here and now. And so, meaning is not something we find once and keep forever. It is created moment by moment through how we live, how we love, how we awaken. It is not a treasure buried in the future, but a seed planted in the present. Each act of kindness, each breath of mindfulness, each step taken with awareness waters that seed. Over time, it grows into a life that, though impermanent, shines with depth and purpose. As we pause here, we can see how this reflection naturally leads into another. For even as we touch meaning in presence and compassion, the restless mind still returns, asking, how can I sustain this? How can I continue to walk the path when temptation, distraction, and suffering surround me? The answer lies not in ideas alone, but in practice, in the daily cultivation of wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness. And so, having explored the search for meaning, we now turn to the practices that help us live it fully, even in the face of life's challenges. The search for meaning is not a single journey with a final destination, but a path walked anew each day. Even when we touch glimpses of purpose through compassion, presence, and awareness, the challenges of daily life can cloud our vision. Bills must still be paid, relationships still demand care, bodies still grow tired. It is easy to slip back into the old cycle of striving and forgetting. This is why meaning cannot be something we simply think about or decide once. It must be practiced, cultivated, lived again and again, like tending a garden. Each day, we water the seeds of purpose with small acts of mindfulness and kindness, and in time, they grow strong enough to weather life's storms. One way to practice meaning is through mindful service. When we shift our focus from what can I get to how can I give, life begins to feel fuller. Service does not have to be grand. It can be as small as offering patience in a long line, as simple as pausing to listen when someone is in pain, as humble as sweeping a floor with care. These acts root us in the truth that our lives are intertwined with others. Meaning grows when we see ourselves not as isolated individuals, but as threads in a larger fabric, each action strengthening or weakening the weave. To serve is to remember we belong. Another way is to align our daily choices with our deepest values. Many people feel lost, not because life is empty, but because they live out of harmony with what matters most. A person who values compassion but spends each day chasing profit at the expense of others will inevitably feel hollow. A person who values honesty but bends the truth for approval will feel a quiet ache. The search for meaning requires honesty with ourselves. What do I truly value? What do I want my life to stand for? When our actions align with these values, even ordinary tasks gain depth. Washing dishes becomes an act of care. Working becomes an act of contribution. Resting becomes an act of respect for the body. Meaning arises not from grandeur, but from integrity. The teachings also remind us that meaning is not separate from suffering. Often, the moments of greatest purpose arise in response to pain. A parent's sacrifice for a child, a community's care after disaster, a friend's presence in grief. These acts of love are born from suffering, but shine with profound meaning. The Buddha taught that suffering is not to be avoided, but embraced as the teacher. It reveals where love is needed, where compassion can grow, where wisdom can deepen. When we see suffering not as failure, but as opportunity, our lives take on meaning even in difficulty. We become participants in the great work of healing, for ourselves and for others. Still, the modern world complicates this search. With constant distraction, endless comparison, and the noise of consumer culture, many feel torn in 1,000 directions. We are told meaning lies in success, in popularity, in wealth, in youth. Yet those who achieve these often report the same emptiness as before. The mind asks, is this all? The teachings offer a clear answer. Meaning is not out there to be bought or won. It is in here, in how we meet each moment. When we quiet the noise, we rediscover the simple truths. A shared smile, a kind word, a moment of stillness, all carry more meaning than the hollow promises of consumer culture. The search for meaning also requires humility. We often imagine that to matter, our lives must be large, visible, important. But the truth is, meaning is found in the invisible as much as the visible. A teacher whose care inspires a child may never know how far that influence travels. A stranger's kindness may ripple outward in ways unseen. Our actions matter, even when unnoticed. Meaning is not measured by applause, but by impact, not by recognition, but by resonance. To live meaningfully is to trust that every act of compassion matters, even if no one sees, even if history forgets. One beautiful teaching says, drop by drop, the bucket is filled. In the same way, meaning is built drop by drop. Each act of awareness, each choice rooted in compassion, each moment of integrity fills the bucket. Over time, what once seemed small becomes vast. A life that feels scattered and empty slowly becomes a vessel of purpose. And the miracle is that we do not need to wait for grand opportunities. The drops are already here, waiting in the ordinary, in how we speak, how we listen, how we walk, how we breathe. To live meaningfully is to recognize that every moment is an opportunity to fill the bucket. Ultimately, the search for meaning brings us back to the present. We do not discover it by obsessing over the past or chasing the future. We discover it by living this moment with depth, with love, with awareness. In this way, the search itself dissolves. There is nothing to find, only something to live. Each breath becomes meaningful when taken with gratitude. Each step becomes meaningful when taken with awareness. Each interaction becomes meaningful when infused with compassion. This is the gift of the teachings, the realization that we do not need to chase meaning. We need only to wake up to the meaning already here. And so, as we close this reflection, we see how meaning, impermanence, and compassion weave together. Impermanence makes life fragile, which makes it precious. Compassion transforms life from isolation into connection. Meaning arises naturally when we live with presence, aligned with our deepest values. The restless search ends and life itself becomes the answer. Yet even with this wisdom, the path is not easy. Distractions pull us away, suffering challenges us, and the mind forgets again and again. To walk this path requires not only understanding, but practice, a daily returning, a steady cultivation. And so, we turn now to the practical side of the journey, the discipline of practice, the daily steps that anchor us when life feels unstable. It is one thing to understand wisdom and another to live it. We may read about impermanence, about compassion, about the illusion of self, and nod in agreement. But when life presses in, when bills arrive, when anger flares, when fear grips the chest, understanding alone often fades. This is why the path is not built on ideas alone, but on practice. Practice is the bridge between knowing and living, between inspiration and transformation. Without it, wisdom remains theory. With it, wisdom becomes a lived reality, a steady light even in the storm. The Buddha compared practice to training a field. A farmer may understand everything about seeds, soil, and rain, but if they never put hands to earth, no crop will grow. In the same way, we may understand everything about mindfulness and compassion, but if we never practice, no peace will arise. Knowledge is the map. Practice is the journey. Discipline is what allows the journey to continue when enthusiasm wanes, when obstacles appear, when the road feels long. Discipline does not mean harshness or self-punishment. In the modern world, the word often carries a heavy tone, as if discipline were about forcing ourselves into rigid shapes. But true discipline on the path is different. It is not about punishment, but about care. It is the steady commitment to return, again and again, to what heals. It is like watering a plant each day, not because we enjoy it every time, but because we know the plant will wither without it. Discipline is the quiet strength that keeps us faithful to what matters most. Even when the mind resists doubt in practice, discipline often begins with small steps. A few minutes of mindful breathing each morning, a pause before responding in anger, a moment of gratitude before eating. These may seem small, but they are seeds. And seeds, when watered daily, grow into forests. The discipline is not in grand gestures, but in consistency. The mind loves excitement, chasing novelty. A true transformation grows from repetition. The candle of awareness burns brighter not by a single flame, but by daily tending. One powerful practice is sitting meditation. To sit quietly, to bring attention to the breath, to notice thoughts and let them pass. This is the heart of mindfulness. At first, the mind rebels. It races, it wanders, it complains. But discipline is not about silencing the mind by force. It is about returning gently, again and again, to the breath. Each return is like lifting a weight in training. Slowly, strength builds. Patience deepens. Awareness sharpens. The practice is not about perfection, but about persistence. The discipline is in showing up, even when the mind resists. Another practice is mindful action. Meditation does not end on the cushion. It extends into how we walk, how we work, how we speak. To wash dishes with awareness of water and breath. To walk with attention to each step, each contact with the earth. To speak with care, choosing words that are truthful, kind, and useful. These practices transform daily life into practice. Discipline here means remembering, again and again, to bring presence into ordinary tasks. Over time, the ordinary becomes extraordinary, alive with depth and meaning. The community, or Sangha, also plays a vital role in discipline. Alone, we may grow discouraged. Alone, we may forget. But in community, we find support. Just as logs burn brighter when placed together, so do practitioners strengthen each other when walking side by side. Discipline is not only personal, but communal. To practice with others is to borrow strength when ours is weak, to offer strength when theirs is faltering. It is to remember that we walk this path not in isolation, but in fellowship. The discipline of practice is sustained by the warmth of community. Modern life, however, often resists discipline. We are told to chase comfort, to indulge every desire, to avoid difficulty. Practice asks the opposite, to stay, to face, to persist. This can feel countercultural, even unnatural, but the fruit reveals itself over time. Just as an athlete trains muscles that once felt weak, so does the practitioner train the heart to remain steady. At first, discipline feels like effort. Later, it feels like freedom. What was once hard becomes natural. What was once resisted becomes beloved. The practice becomes less about discipline imposed and more About joy discovered. Stories from the tradition remind us of this truth. One tells of a monk who, after years of restless struggle, finally asked his teacher for the secret to progress. The teacher replied, "Keep going." The monk pressed further, asking for deeper wisdom. The teacher repeated, "Keep going." At first, the monk felt frustrated, but over time, he understood. The discipline is not in finding something new, but in returning, again and again, to what is simple, what is true. The secret is perseverance. The secret is to keep going. In this way, discipline becomes less about force and more about love. We practice not because we must, but because we care for our own hearts, care for others, care for the world. Each act of practice is an act of love, a way of saying, peace is possible, and I choose to cultivate it. This love sustains discipline when willpower fails. It transforms duty into devotion. It makes practice not a burden, but a gift. As we close this reflection, we see that discipline is the engine of transformation. It turns knowledge into wisdom, intention into reality, hope into peace. Without it, the path remains distant. With it, the path becomes alive beneath our feet. And yet, discipline is not only about sitting on a cushion or walking mindfully. It is also about resilience in difficulty, the strength to return to practice when life feels overwhelming, when suffering presses close. And so, as we continue, we turn to the second half of this reflection, the discipline of resilience, the art of continuing when the road grows hard. Discipline becomes most valuable not in times of ease, but in times of difficulty. When life flows smoothly, practice feels light. We sit in calm meditation. We breathe with ease. We speak with kindness. But when suffering strikes, when illness comes, when relationships falter, when fear grips the heart, discipline shows its true worth. In these moments, the mind wants to flee, to forget, to collapse. Yet discipline whispers, return. Return to the breath. Return to awareness. Return to compassion. The practice we have cultivated in easier days becomes the anchor that steadies us in the storm. Resilience is born from this discipline. It is the quiet strength to endure, not through force, but through steadiness. A tree that resists the wind with rigidity may snap, but one that bends with rooted strength survives. Discipline teaches us to bend without breaking, to endure without despair. Each time we return to practice in difficulty, we strengthen this resilience. We learn that pain does not destroy us, that fear does not define us, that suffering does not own us. We discover within ourselves a strength greater than we imagined, a strength not of armor, but of endurance, not of hardness, but of faithfulness. One example is the practice of breathing in pain. When the body aches or the heart is heavy, the instinct is to resist, to push it away. But resistance often makes the pain worse. The disciplined practice is to breathe into it, to meet it with awareness. Each breath becomes a gesture of courage. I will not run. I will stay. Over time, the pain shifts. Sometimes it softens, sometimes it remains, but our relationship to it changes. It no longer feels unbearable. It becomes something we can hold, something we can face. This shift is the fruit of discipline. It is not that the storm disappears, but that we learn how to walk in the rain without drowning. Another form of discipline is the practice of returning after failure. No one walks the path perfectly. We lose our temper, forget mindfulness, neglect compassion. The undisciplined mind uses this as an excuse. See, I cannot do this. But true discipline is gentle. It says, begin again. No matter how many times we fall, we return. Each return is practice. Each return builds strength. Over time, the habit of returning becomes stronger than the habit of giving up. This is resilience. Not never falling, but never refusing to rise again. Community again supports this discipline. Alone, in dark times, we may believe we cannot continue. But with others beside us, friends, teachers, companions, we find strength. One voice saying, "Keep going," can carry us through despair. This is why practice is rarely solitary. Even when we sit alone, we sit with the support of countless beings, human and non-human, past and present, who walk the same path. Discipline is personal, but it is also shared. We keep going for ourselves and for others, knowing our practice strengthens the whole. Discipline also shows in patience. Modern culture prizes speed, quick results, instant gratification, immediate success. But spiritual practice moves slowly, like a tree growing or a mountain eroding. Its fruits are not always visible day to day. Impatience says, "This is not working. Why bother?" Discipline says, "Trust the process." We may not see change in the moment, but over months, years, decades, transformation unfolds. The anxious heart softens. The angry voice quiets. The restless mind steadies. Patience is discipline stretched across time, the willingness to keep walking even when results are unseen. There is a story of a monk who drew water from a well each day for many years. At first, the rope was smooth, the stone unmarked. But after years of repetition, the rope had worn a deep groove into the stone. The monk smiled and said, "If even stone can be shaped by steady effort, how much more can the heart be shaped by steady practice?" Discipline is this steady rope, carving transformation into the heart over time. We may not see the change each day, but one day, looking back, we realize the stone has been reshaped. Another important aspect of discipline is balance. Discipline is not about pushing ourselves into exhaustion. It is about consistency without force. Too much strain leads to burnout. Too little effort leads to stagnation. The middle way, steady, sustainable practice is where transformation thrives. Just as a lute string must be neither too tight nor too loose to make music, so must our discipline be balanced. This balance allows us to continue for a lifetime, not just for a season. It turns practice from burden to rhythm, from duty to joy. Ultimately, discipline is love made steady. We practice not to earn worth, but to care for ourselves and others. We breathe, sit, walk, and return because we love life enough to live it fully. We love ourselves enough to seek freedom. We love others enough to cultivate compassion. Discipline without love is harsh and cold. Discipline with love is warm and enduring. It carries us through hardship, not with force, but with devotion. It transforms practice into a path of joy, even in difficulty. As we close this reflection, we see that discipline is not about control, but about constancy. It is the gentle strength that carries us through storms, the patience that shapes stone, the love that returns again and again. It is the anchor of the path, the steady flame that does not go out. And yet, even with discipline, we are still human. We stumble, we forget, we fail. But this too is part of the journey. The final step is learning to meet even failure with compassion, to walk the path with gentleness, to remember that liberation is not perfection, but presence. And so, from the discipline of practice, we now turn to the final teaching of our journey, the art of compassion itself, the heart of the path, the door that opens not only for us, but for all beings. At the heart of all the teachings impermanence, non-self, mindfulness, discipline lies one jewel that gives them warmth and life: compassion. Without compassion, wisdom can become cold, practice can become rigid, discipline can become harsh. Compassion is what softens the path, what makes it human, what opens the door, not only to our own freedom, but to the freedom of all beings. If wisdom is the lamp that shows the way, compassion is the flame that makes the lamp shine. Compassion begins with seeing suffering clearly. Many of us turn away from suffering, afraid it will overwhelm us. We numb ourselves with distraction, harden ourselves with cynicism, or deny suffering altogether. But to close our eyes is to close our hearts. Compassion asks us to look directly, to see the pain of the world and of ourselves without flinching. This seeing is not despair, but awakening. When we see clearly, we understand that suffering is universal. The anxious colleague, the grieving neighbor, the frustrated child, the weary parent, we are all carrying burdens. To recognize this truth is to recognize our shared humanity. It is the first step toward compassion. Yet compassion is not pity. Pity looks down from a distance, keeping the other small. Compassion looks across, eye to eye, heart to heart. It says, your suffering is my suffering. Your joy is my joy. It does not separate, but unites. And it does not stop at feeling. Compassion moves into action. It asks, how can I ease this pain? Sometimes the action is grand caring for the sick, standing for justice. Sometimes it is small, a kind word, a gentle touch, a listening ear. Compassion does not measure scale, but sincerity. A drop of compassion can change a life. A lifetime of compassion can change the world. The Buddha embodied this truth. After awakening, he did not retreat into isolation. He spent decades walking from village to village, teaching, comforting, guiding. His life was compassion in motion. He taught that compassion, or karuna, is not optional but essential. Just as a bird needs 2 wings to fly, we need both wisdom and compassion to awaken. Wisdom without compassion is incomplete. Compassion without wisdom is blind. Together, they carry us across the river of suffering to the shore of peace. Compassion also begins within. Many struggle with self-compassion, believing it to be weakness or indulgence. We criticize ourselves harshly, holding standards we would never impose on others. But self-compassion is not indulgence. It is honesty. It is seeing our own suffering and responding with kindness instead of cruelty. When anxiety rises, we can say, this is hard. May I be gentle with myself? When failure stings, we can say, this hurts, but it does not define me. When loneliness weighs heavy, we can say, I am worthy of love, even now. This self-compassion is not selfish. It is the foundation of compassion for others. If we cannot be kind to ourselves, our kindness to others will always be fragile. A powerful practice of compassion is loving kindness meditation, or metta. In this practice, we repeat phrases of goodwill. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease. Then we extend these wishes outward, to loved ones, to strangers, even to those who have harmed us. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. At first, the words may feel mechanical, but over time, they open the heart. They remind us that every being longs for the same things: safety, peace, happiness. Compassion grows not from sentiment, but from recognition of this shared longing. Compassion also transforms how we respond to anger. When someone harms us, the instinct is to strike back, to defend, to resent. But compassion asks, what suffering drives this harm? An angry person is often a hurting person. A cruel word often hides deep fear. This does not excuse harm, but it transforms our response. Instead of fueling the fire with hatred, we cool it with understanding. We may still set boundaries. We may still protect ourselves, but we do so without poisoning our own hearts. Compassion frees us from being chained to resentment. It allows us to act firmly yet kindly, to protect without dehumanizing. In daily life, compassion can be as simple as attention. In a world where people are rushed, ignored, unseen, to truly notice another is an act of love. To meet someone's eyes, to listen without interrupting, to acknowledge their presence, these are seeds of compassion. They cost little but mean much. They say, "You matter. I see you. I care." And often, that is what people most need. Not solutions, not fixes, but presence. Compassion is presence that says, "You are not alone." Compassion also extends beyond humans. The Buddha taught kindness toward all beings, animals, plants, even the earth itself. Modern life often treats the natural world as an object to exploit. But compassion reminds us that we are not separate. The suffering of the earth is our suffering. When forests burn, when oceans choke with plastic, when species vanish, it is not out there. It is within the web of life that sustains us. To live with compassion is to live gently with the earth, to care for it as we would for a beloved. This is not only ecological, but spiritual. To harm the earth is to harm ourselves. To heal the earth is to heal ourselves. Compassion, then, is both intimate and vast. It is the tenderness we show to our own wounded heart and the care we extend to the whole world. It is the small act and the great vision, the drop and the ocean. And when compassion fills the heart, life takes on a new quality. Suffering is no longer something to fear, but something to meet with love. Joy is no longer something to cling to, but something to share. The path is no longer lonely, but connected, woven with countless beings walking together. As we continue, we will see that compassion is not always easy. To remain open in the face of pain, to forgive when hurt, to love when rejected, this requires strength. It requires courage. And so, in the next step of our journey, we will explore this deeper dimension of compassion, how to sustain it, how to embody it even when life challenges us, and how compassion, more than anything else, opens the door to true liberation. Compassion is often imagined as soft, gentle, even fragile. But in truth, compassion is one of the greatest strengths we can cultivate. It takes far more courage to meet suffering with love than to meet it with hatred. Hatred is easy. It arises quickly. It burns hot. It demands little of us. Compassion asks more. It asks us to stay present in pain, to resist the impulse to close down, to open the heart when it would be easier to harden. This is why compassion is not weakness, but bravery. It is the bravery of staying open in a world that often wounds. It is the bravery of choosing love when fear and anger press close. To sustain compassion, we must also learn boundaries. Many fear that compassion means letting others walk over us, giving until we collapse. But true compassion is wise. It does not enable harm. It does not confuse love with submission. To set a boundary is not a lack of compassion. It is an expression of it. For just as we would not feed someone poison, we should not allow them to harm us or themselves unchecked. Compassion balances care for others with care for ourselves. It sees the whole picture, acting not from fear or guilt, but from clarity. Sometimes compassion is a soft embrace. Sometimes compassion is a firm no. Both arise from the same root. The wish for well being compassion also requires endurance. It is easy to be kind when others are kind to us, easy to be patient when life is smooth. But when insult strikes, when betrayal wounds, when suffering is relentless, compassion is tested. These are the moments where practice deepens. Instead of reacting with resentment, we pause. We breathe. We remember that the one who hurt us is also caught in delusion, also bound by suffering. We remember that their anger, like ours, is impermanent. With this perspective, forgiveness becomes possible, not forgetting, not excusing, but releasing the chain that binds us. Forgiveness is compassion turned inward, freeing us from the prison of resentment. In this way, compassion heals not only relationships, but ourselves. Hatred corrodes the heart. Bitterness poisons the spirit. But compassion cleanses. It restores softness where hardness had grown, light where shadows had spread. Scientific studies even show that compassion practices calm the nervous system, reduce stress, and strengthen the immune system. But beyond science, the felt truth is clear. When we live with compassion, we feel lighter. The burdens of anger and fear no longer weigh us down. Compassion frees us. There is a story of a monk who is insulted daily by a villager. One day, a student asked the monk why he did not respond with anger. The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse it, who keeps the gift?" The student answered, "The one who offered it." The monk smiled. "So it is with anger. If I do not accept it, it remains with the one who gave it. Compassion is this refusal. It refuses to take in poison. It chooses to remain free. And in that freedom, it offers freedom to others. Compassion is also expensive. It begins with ourselves, extends to loved ones, then to strangers, then to all beings. At first, it may feel difficult to include those we dislike or fear. But with practice, compassion grows wider, like ripples in a pond. Eventually, it embraces even enemies. This does not mean approving of their actions. It means recognizing their humanity beneath the delusion. It means wishing that they, too, be free from suffering, for a heart trapped in hatred is itself in pain. To extend compassion, even here, is the highest form of courage. It is the love that knows no bounds, the heart of the Bodhisattva. Compassion also gives meaning to impermanence. If life is fleeting, if nothing lasts, then what matters most is how we love. Achievements fade, possessions crumble, identities shift, but compassion leaves traces beyond time. A kind act may be forgotten by history, but its ripple continues in unseen ways. A gentle word may echo in someone's heart for a lifetime. Compassion is the legacy that outlives us, not carved in stone, but written in hearts. This is why the Buddha called compassion one of the highest virtues. It is not bound by impermanence, but carried forward through interconnection. In the end, compassion is both the path and the destination. It is the practice and the fruit, the journey and the arrival. When we live with compassion, we walk the path of freedom. And when we awaken fully, what remains is compassion, an endless wish for all beings to be free from suffering, to live in peace, to know joy. Compassion is the heartbeat of awakening, the essence of liberation, the truest expression of our shared humanity. And so, as we close this reflection, we see that the journey through suffering, anxiety, impermanence, and practice all leads here to compassion. It is the thread that connects each teaching, the bridge that carries wisdom into action, the light that makes life meaningful. Compassion is not the end of the path. It is the path itself. And from here, we are ready to step into the final chapter of our journey, a closing reflection that gathers all we have explored, offers hope, and invites us to carry these teachings into our lives with courage, clarity, and love.